We're holding on page Nun Daled, which is Perek Mem, opposite of page 106. And let's give a little synopsis of where we're holding. Perek Lamed Ches through Perek Mem. In other words, these three prakim, 38, 39, and 40, are one topic, one idea, which the Alter Rebbe talks about at length. So right now we're holding by Perek Mem, the 40th Perek, which is, again, this Perek is going to finish off the idea which we've been discussing over the past few lessons. We're not going to finish Perek Mem tonight, either next week or the week after that, but we're in the middle of a topic. We're mid-topic. The topic is, the larger topic over here is Kavanah, the importance of Kavanah when a person is doing a mitzvah, and as discussed many times, Kavanah as defined over here in Tanya is not intent, and that I know what I'm doing, or I'm thinking what I'm doing. Kavanah is not the opposite of mindless mitzvahs hanashim ulamad, that is doing something by rote, but Kavanah, as defined by Tanya, is Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. That the motivation behind the mitzvah, the kavanah, the intention of the mitzvah, is fear of Hashem and love of Hashem. That's why I'm doing the mitzvah. That is kavanah.
But the kavanah has to be lishma.
That is lishma. Lishma is Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. When I do a mitzvah with Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, that means I'm doing it lishma. I'm doing it for the proper reason. I'm doing it for Hashem. I'm doing it out of fear of Hashem, out of awe of Hashem. As we're going to discuss more in Perek Lamed Ches, Lamed Tes, and Mem. In these prakim, we're talking about Ava and Yira together. Together, they make the lishma of Torah and mitzvahs. In the later prakim, starting from Perek Mem Aleph, the Alter Rebbe then is going to start talking about Ava and Yira individually. We're going to analyze each one of them individually, both why each one is necessary, as well as also how to arrive at Yiras Hashem and how to arrive at Avos Hashem. That starts next Perek Mem Aleph. We'll talk about them individually. Right now, we're talking about them together as a unit, and Ava and Yira as a unit together constitute Kavanah and constitute Lishma. Says the Alter Rebbe, says the Baal Tanya, that when we have Kavanah, when we're learning Torah, when we're doing a mitzvah, so that Kavanah elevates the mitzvah, as discussed in the previous chapters, and depending on the nature of the Kavanah, it could lift it up to the world of Bria or to the world of Yitzira. And if someone is a very, very great tzaddik, perhaps even to the world of Atzilus. And then in the end of chapter 39, the Alter Rebbe says, what if a person doesn't have Kavanah when doing a mitzvah? There is no Avos Hashem, there is no Yiras Hashem. Says, so then the mitzvah is not elevated. It's just not elevated. You have not elevated the mitzvah to a higher plane, to a higher spiritual level. Moreover, if chas v'shalom, a person studies Torah, and not only it wasn't lishma, but you did it with the wrong intentions, a person studied Torah in order to get kavod, in order to be a Talmud Chacham, in order to be able to make money, or whatever it may be, so then, not only have you not elevated the Torah, but then you've dragged the Torah into klipa. Because what you've effectively done is, klipa means a covering. Klipa means something which covers its true nature. Torah is an expression of Hashem. And by you taking it and using it for your own purposes, you've covered up. It's not any more godly. Rather, you've made it a tool and an instrument for your selfish self, which is the idea of klipa. However, says the Alter Rebbe, if a person does tshuva, so tshuva may be refuah, so then even if a person learned with a negative intention, so then that Torah or the mitzvahs or the davening can be elevated. And if there was no negative intent, there only wasn't a positive intent, in other words, there are three possibilities. You can learn Torah and do mitzvahs lishma, in which case you elevate it. If you do it for a bad reason, then you drag it down onto klipa, in which case you have to do tshuva. If you didn't have not lishma and not a negative intention either, and then it just remains in limbo, then you don't have to do tshuva. But if once you relearn that same thing which you learned, if you learn it again lishma, or if you daven again lishma, then that drags with it the previous davening and learning and elevates it as well. That's what we're holding, and now we will start Perek Mem inside. Perek Mem. However, kol zman shelo ilama chazar v'lama davar ze lishma, as long as you did not go and review and learn it lishma. In other words, you're talking about that you learned Torah and you didn't learn it lishma. Again, there wasn't a bad intention, but it just wasn't lishma. You learned it because you enjoy a blat gemara. That's not a negative intention. It's not a selfish intention. So as long as you did not go and learn it again, Lishma, Ein Lemudi Oilam, Afilu B'Yud Tzvidis HaMe'iris Ba'Olam HaYitzira V'Asiyah. Then, this Torah which you learned, since it was not Lishma, it's not elevated even in the 10 Sfiras which are in the world of Yitzira and the world of Asiyah. Ki Asfiras Hein Bechinas Elokus, because the Sfiras are godliness. I know I'm talking a little Chinese right now. Give me a moment and I'll translate all this into relatable English. Because the Sfiras are Elokus, Ubehen Mislabish U'Misyachid Eir Ein Seif Baruch U'Mamish, and within them is the Eir Ein Sof. Ubelei Dechilu Rechimu, without love of Hashem and fear of Hashem, La Yachla L'Salaka U'Lamekam Kadam Hashem, the Torah mitzvahs can't go, and they cannot be united with the Sfiras, because the Sfiras are godly. Kameshakasav B'Tikunim, as it says in the Tikunim. Rak, rather, Limudei, this study, when you study Torah, not Lishma, Oila, that goes up, Lehechalei Sumudurim, to the different chambers and different dwelling, Shehein Chitzonius Ha'elamus, which is in the external parts of the world, Shebehem Oimdim HaMalachim, which over there are the angels. What does this mean? Okay, so let's what?
What's Chitzonius Ha'elamus?
The external part of the world. Let's talk about this for a moment. Okay, so we know that we learned in Pirkei Avos, we learned a few weeks ago, Ba'asara Ma'amaris Nivra Olam, that the world was created with 10 utterances. It's not random, the number 10 isn't random, but rather these 10 utterances, they correspond to the 10 spheres, Hashem's 10 attributes. In Sefer Yitzira it says so clearly, that with 10 building blocks Hashem created the world, and these are the 10 spheres. As we know, there are multiple levels of reality. We are on the lowest level of reality. This physical plane which we are in is the very lowest level. But then there are higher levels of reality, the higher what we call worlds. We're talking about them over here. There's the world of Bria and the world of Yitzira and the world of Asiyah. And obviously these aren't places. Therefore we can never ask where are these places, that they're higher level of spirituality. So for example, the world of Yitzira, as we mentioned, is the world of emotion. So whereas our world is the world of the physical, the world of Yitzira is the world of emotions. The world of Bria is the world of intellect. The world of Atzilus is the world which is total Chachma, or total Bittul to Hashem. Every single level of reality is comprised of 10 spheres, comprised of these 10 spheres. Our physical world is comprised of these 10 spheres, which means that the physical, everything here in this world is made up of the 10 spheres. Just like you have 7 musical notes, and how many songs you can make out of them, out of the combinations of them, where you have the 3 primary colors. So the same thing, everything in this world is made up of the 10 spheres. For example, and Kabbalah talks a lot, water is chesed, fire is gvura. So right over there you have two physical creations, but they are derived from the spheres. And the same thing is all other creations are either correspond to a certain sphera or combinations thereof. So everything is a combination of the spheres. Just like that, just as that is the case over here in this physical world, the same is true in every world, including the spiritual worlds. We are the only physical world. Above us, there are multiple levels and planes of spiritual realities, and each one of them is made up of these 10 spheres. But they are spiritual, not physical worlds. These 10 spheres in Kabbalah, you might have heard the term of Oiris and Kalim. There's the light and there's the vessels. So these 10 spheres contain both. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, all of these are vessels. They are vessels. And then inside them there is the light. There is the Oir. To put it in different words, they have a neshama. Every single world has a neshama. Kindness on its own is like a flashlight without batteries. Then there's the what is the batteries inside it? What is the batteries inside the chesed? That is the oir of Hashem. So every single world has a neshama. The neshama divides into 10. And some of the neshama goes into chachma, some into bina, some into das, some into chesed, gevura. Because every world is constituted of 10 spheres, just like this world is constituted of the 10 ma'amaris, which corresponds to 10 spheres, and within those 10 spheres there is a neshama. In every single world there is a neshama. So the neshama is the oyer, the godly light or the godly energy, which enters the 10 spheres, and that becomes everything which is within the worlds.
The 10 Amoris, they're the ones that gives the neshama to the spheres. When we say it corresponds, there's the spheres. Could you just tell me, explain to me?
No. No, the 10 Amoris are the kelim. Every single one of them created the kelim. The oyer is pasha. The oyer of the energy is formless. Hashem himself doesn't have a form. He's not chesed or gevura. He's above and beyond that. But he created these 10 mediums through which he interacts with everything and all of creation, and he infuses his energy, which is called in Kabbalah, is called pashut. It's simple. It has no qualities to it. It has no definition to it, and that neshama is within the 10 spheres of every single world.
The Malachim has all this?
The spheres.
Sorry?
Yes, the Amoris
are the Esser spheres, right? Because what distinguishes them is the kelim. The oyer is one. What distinguishes it, what makes it 10, is the 10 different kelim. Yeah.
Did the Malachim has this orot and kelim?
We're getting to Malachim soon. Now, in every single world, the neshama is different. What does that mean that the neshama, the oyer in every world is different? That means in every single world, the oyer will be lower or higher, a higher level of oyer. The higher the world is, the higher the oyer is. The lower the world is, the lower the oyer. The oyer which is within the 10 spheres.
Higher means more intense.
Sorry?
More intense light, more light.
Right.
So higher
Right.
means more of,
Right.
much more of.
Right. And this is going to be a theme as we go on later in the Perek. Why is there more light in the higher world and less light in the lower world? So by the way, it's like a loop. You could say, well, it's high. The reason why the world is higher is because it has a higher oyer, a higher energy. But there's another point also, which is that every single thing receives the oyer, the energy that it is capable of receiving. The higher something is, the more oyer it can accept. So for just some simple examples for this idea, you have a father. A father has 10 kids, let's say. So one of the kids is 2, one is 4, one is 6, and then top one is 20. Now every single one of them is aware of the fact that this person is their father. It's the same father, right? But is their awareness of their father all the same?
You could repeat this again, this analogy.
You have 10 kids, right?
10 kids, yeah.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. I hope that adds up to 10. So you have 10 kids over there. They're all aware of the existence of their father. So therefore, the notion that they have a father is begilui by all of them, is revealed within all of them. Is it revealed to the same extent in all of them?
No. When you see it different than the one.
So it's much more revealed in the one who is 20 years old. It's that a concept is very revealed, and it gets lower and lower till by the 2-year-old, it's a very, very small revelation of the idea. Is it because the father reveals himself differently to the different children?
No, it's the Keli.
It's the Keli, right? So the same thing is also the substance of the world, every single world. The reason why there's lesser oyer in a lower world is because the substance of the lower world cannot receive a higher oyer. So therefore, the physical world, because we're physical, we're very limited in what kind of oyer we can receive, what kind of energy we can receive and process, because we are so low, because the substance of the world is so low. And then if you move higher, emotions, for example, the world of Yitzira, which is the world of emotions are not a keli, cannot receive as much as intellect can, which is higher. So therefore the oyer in the world of Yitzira is lower than the oyer which is in the world of Bria. Now we need to understand this, however, the oyer within every single world is Hashem, or what's called Elokus, godliness. So the oyer, the actual energy, the neshama in every single world is an extension of Hashem. But the world itself is not godly. The world itself is not Hashem. The Kalim aren't Hashem. Let's put it in different worlds, right? The oyer, the neshama, which is the oyer, which is within the 10 spheres, that is an emanation, that is a direct extension of Hashem. And the only exception to this is the world of Atzilus. The world of Atzilus is, even the Kalim there are united with Hashem, and that's a special That's a special chiddush. That's what makes the world of Atzilus, which is the highest world, that's what makes it unique and special. And as we mentioned in the last period, the highest of tzaddikim, they have a connection to the world of Atzilus. But the rest of us, we're talking about the world of Bria, Yitzir, Asiya. So, within every world, again, there's the neshama, and then there's the world. So in the world of Bria, let's talk for a second, the world of Bria. The world of Bria is the world of intellect. Now, intellect itself isn't godly, but the neshama within it, which is the oyer, the 10 spheres, is godly. Within the world of Bria, they're running around a bunch of malachim, intellectual malachim. Now, these malachim are creations. They're holy. Holy meaning they're spiritual beings, and they recognize Hashem. They're much holier than us, and they don't have, their capacity of understanding and appreciating Hashem is much greater than ours. But they're what's called nivroim. They are creations. In other words, they're an entity other than Hashem. In the world of Yitzira, they're also malachim in the world of Yitzira, and they are lower than the malachim in the world of Bria. And once again, obviously, these are not they're not godly. They're holy. So there are different worlds. Every world is holier than the other one. Our world is just klipa. There's no holiness in our world at all, except for the neshama. The neshama of the world, which is the oyer, which is in the 10 spheres of our world, but the world itself is klipa. And the higher worlds, they're not klipa, they're holy worlds, but not godly. Now, when I do a mitzvah,
when you say not godly, what do you mean exactly? If they're holy, not godly, how do you break that down?
Godly means something which has no ego, has no I. Anything which is a mitzias, which is me, is not Hashem. It can be holy.
But it's made from God. God created it.
God created it. What God created means God created it. What the definition of a nivra, of a creation, is something which has a sense of self. It senses itself as something other than Hashem. Hello, I am. The moment you say hello, I am, and my name is, that's not godly already. That's already something which is other, feels itself other than Hashem. Whereas the oyer, the neshama within every world, is not something other than Hashem. It doesn't sense itself to be anything other than Hashem. Clear now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though He created it, it's still not godly.
Right. It's not a lukus. It's not a lukus.
I was confused with that concept.
Just because he created it doesn't make it godly.
Right.
Right.
Well, He created, I guess it.
Doesn't make it godly.
It depends again.
It's holy, but it's not godly.
It depends what in other words.
God is God.
Right. If you bow down to it, they stone you.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not only true of a table. If you bow down to an angel, you're also if someone bows down to an angel, they're also chayiv misa. Even though an angel is much holier than a statue that you make, but at the end of the day, the angel also is not Hashem. But the neshama, the oyer, which is within every single world, that is Hashem. That is what's called a lukus. We spoke about this already in Perek Beis a long time ago. We spoke about how in Kabbalah there's this third category. Before Kabbalah, there was the creator and there was creation. Two categories. Either you're Hashem or you're not Hashem. Kabbalah came along, and the biggest chiddush of Kabbalah is this third category called a lukus. A lukus means godliness. It's something which extends from Hashem. It's Ein Sof. It's not Ein Leitchila. It's not something that has no beginning. It has a beginning. It begins on Hashem. But it's Ein Sof. It's infinite. It's something which extends from Hashem, and it has no sense of otherness, no sense of identity or ego. It is merely an extension of Hashem, like light that extends from a source. That is what's called oyer, and that's what's called a lukus. Whereas a nivra, creation, is something which senses itself to be a mitzias. So again, in all the worlds, so you have the world, which is a nivra, a mitzias, and angels that are a mitzias. They're something very holy, very beautiful. Kolam huvim, kolam brurim, kolam geberim. Right? We say it every single day in davening. We talk about how amazing and how holy the angels are, but they're not Hashem. And then you have the oyer.
What's
Okay.
organose?
That's a good question. I don't know. Now,
And the spirits are godly, you say.
the spheres, again, there are two parts of the spheres. There's the oyer and there's the kalim.
It's not godly.
Kalim, no. Only in Atzilus there. In Atzilus, the Zohar says in Atzilus, Iyu v'chayo yichad, Iyu v'garmo yichad, which means in Atzilus you have this amazing thing that the entire world is godly, even the kalim. But once you get to the world of Bria, which is why it's called Bria, the world Bria means creation. But what is created? Not the neshama, not the oyer, not the neshama Bria. What's created in the world of Bria is the kalim.
Caleb.
Right? But Atzilus, it's not Bria. Atzilus is higher than that. It's not yet created. There is no other entity other than Hashem. Even the Kalim are part of Hashem there also. But let's again, we're going to leave Atzilus behind for now. So let's go back to our mitzvahs, our Torah, our mitzvahs. What we're trying to do, as we know, is we're trying to infuse the mitzvah itself is holy, as we're going to learn at length in this page. Any mitzvah is holy. The act is a holy act. Which means on the word, we live in a world of asiyah, of action. So the action I do is a holy act. But I want that the act should be more than a holy act. I want to infuse this also with a spiritual identity, this mitzvah. That's what I'm learning Torah, the lishma. The kavanah that I'm going to have is because I want that the Torah, not only the act should be holy, but the neshama also should be holy. Now every single time that I learn Torah, I daven, I do a mitzvah, there's the spiritual side and there's the physical side. The physical side is the act. Or even when I'm learning Torah, is the words that I'm saying. And then there's the spiritual. What is the spiritual? What I'm thinking about at the time. My motivations, my intentions. Now, what if I'm not consumed with... So if I have Lishma, so if I'm doing a mitzvah with Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, so what I'm doing is that the Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem are spiritual. So I'm elevating this mitzvah to the level of, to a higher spiritual level, to the world of Bria or the world of Yitzira. And there, that Torah or that mitzvah is becoming united with the neshama of that world. The neshama meaning the oir of the 10 spheres. Why? Because, as we mentioned in previous perek, if I'm doing the mitzvah with Ava V'yira, plain Ava V'yira, so it goes up to the world of emotions, the world of Yitzira. Why? Because I've infused this mitzvah with holy emotions. So it's a higher mitzvah. The mitzvah now not only is a holy act, but also the neshama is a holy neshama of this mitzvah. If I did the mitzvah with Avas Hashem, with Kavana, but the Kavana started with an intellectually based Avas Hashem, I bring it up even higher to the world of Bria. But what if not? What if I do a mitzvah and I don't have that kalishma? Now, somewhere deep down, I'm doing it for Hashem, even if I don't feel it right now, right? And I'm thinking, my mind, there is some sort of spiritual element to it, but the spiritual element is not really, right now I don't have Avas Hashem, I don't have love of Hashem, I don't have fear of Hashem. So this mitzvah cannot connect now to the neshama of the world of Bria, the neshama of the world of Yitzira. Why? Because the neshama of this mitzvah, what is the neshama of the mitzvah? The feelings and the thoughts are not about Hashem. They're not about Hashem. I'm not thinking about Hashem right now. I'm not consumed with love for Hashem. I'm not consumed with fear for Hashem. So the neshama of this mitzvah cannot connect with the neshama of the higher world. But the mitzvah will go to higher world because there is that spiritual part of the mitzvah. But what's going to happen? The mitzvah is going to stay in the outside of the world, in the kalim of the world, or what's called, he says over here, the chambers and the palaces. It creates malachim, which means it cannot connect to the essence of the world, the neshama of the world. Why? Because the neshama that animated my mitzvah wasn't about Hashem. It wasn't about loving Hashem and fearing Hashem. So even though it has a spiritual element, which is why it rises up to a spiritual world, but it only stays in the outside of the world and it creates angels. And angels again are not God. Yes?
A very naive question. What do you mean by world of emotions? What does that mean? Do you mean there's like a world where there's, happiness, joy, loneliness? What does that mean? A world of emotions. I'm sorry, it's intriguing.
Sorry?
It's very intriguing.
Intriguing, right.
I want to understand what you, because it's too...
There is a higher reality. Emotions are the primary identity of that reality. So there can be 3 people here in this world, and one person is just very physical, not a spiritual person at all. I'm not talking about godly, not a spiritual, into miyachilenu basars, into where's the food,
Right.
and then there's another person who's a very emotional person. And then there's another person, an Einstein, who's an intellectual person, which is a different world altogether. Now these 3 people are sitting around the same table, but they're really occupying different worlds. because what's primary to them, their focus and their everything is is totally different. So there are these spiritual realms.
One's higher than the other.
One is higher than the other, right? So there's the physical, which is the world of Asiya. Then higher than that is the world of Yitzira, which is the world of emotions, which is why that's where most of the angels are. Angels are mostly emotional creatures. And then you have higher than that the world of Bria, which is the world where Hashem's Bina, the intellect is revealed. And that's the world of intellect, so it's a higher level. Some higher malachim are over there. And then you have even higher than that, you have the world of Atzilus, which is the world of Elikus, which is a totally different reality. Now these are general worlds. Obviously each one of these subdivided further, but these are general, just like you have Daimim, Tzemeach, Chaim, Edaber, and each one is a different world. Like, the animal life from vegetable life is a different world. They occupy different worlds. We don't mean that physically, but they're totally the same thing as also you have in these 4 different levels.
Thank you.
No problem. So if a person does a mitzvah again for the wrong intentions, then you drag down learns Torah mitzvahs with bad intentions, then you drag it down onto Klippa. But if there was no bad intentions, then it goes up. And if it goes up, then again, so if you did it lishma, it goes up and is united with the neshama of that world, which is the oir. And if you didn't do it lishma, so then it stays in the outside, the external part of the world, what's called the Hechalos and Medurim, the different chambers over there, and it creates malachim, which is amazing. You realize how a neshama is so much higher than a malach. Neshama is higher, and we do a mitzvah shaloi lishma. By the way, when you do a mitzvah lishma, you also create malachim. When you do a mitzvah properly, you also create malachim. But also create malachim, but those malachim are, but that beside the fact that the mitzvah itself connects to the neshama, actually connects with the neshama of the higher world, and but the malach depends. The Rebbe is going to say here soon. Every malach has a body and a soul also, just like a human being has a body and a soul. A malach also has a body and a soul. Just the malach has a physical body.
How come you don't see it?
A spiritual body, right. Sorry. As you say in Baruch Nafshi, right? What does it say? That Oisa Malachav, what's the Lashon? It says Ruche and Eish, right? That the Malachim, their goof, our bodies are made of the 4 elements. The Malachim, their body are made up of only 2 elements, which is fire and wind.
I'm just wondering, because the ones, even though we have to understand the ones that came with the Musa notion to Avram,
okay.
Rashi's.
It's a whole, look in the Ramban, the beginning of Parshas.
He doesn't agree, but
it's a big machlokes. The Ramban doesn't disagree. There's machlokes whether Malachim have a guf, which is Eish and Ruach or not. Kabbalah and Chassidus takes on that they do have, although I believe the Ramban disagrees with that. But the bottom line is, according to Kabbalah, they have a body and a soul, and the body of the malach is created by the body of our mitzvah, and the soul is created by the intention, and depending on the intention, that's how healthy the malach is. So let's do this inside, and I want to do it again. Now you'll see how everything we just learned goes in the word that the Rebbe is saying. Let's start again from the beginning. Perik Mem. However, as long as you do not go and relearn it lishma, like we're talking about, you learned something, it wasn't lishma, and you didn't relearn it yet lishma, because if you relearn it properly, then you elevate it, you drag it along, but you did not yet relearn it properly. So then your learning cannot be elevated into the Yud Tzfiris, which is the neshama of the Yud Tzfiris, which is in the world of Yitzir, or even in the world of Yitzir, or even in the world of Asiya, even though these are lower worlds. Because Sfiris, the Oir, which is in the Sfira, is Alakus, is godliness. In this Oir, in the energy which is within the Sfiris, you have over there the Oir in Sof, literally the infinite light of Hashem. And if you did not have fear of Hashem and love of Hashem when you learned the mitzvah, when you learned the Torah, did the mitzvah, so then the neshama of your deed can't go up and become part of the neshama of these higher worlds. As it says in the Tikkun Yisayir. Rather, your learning goes up to the different chambers and dwelling places. That's the external parts of the world. Shbehem Eibdim HaMalachim. That's where the world, that's where the Malachim are. This is like Rabbi Chaim Vital writes in Shar Nevuah, Perek Beis, that when you learn Torah without Kavana, again, without Kavana means without Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, Nivroim Malachim Beilam HaYitzira. So Malachim are created in the world of Yitzira. When you do mitzvahs without Kavana, Nivroim Malachim are created Beilam Asiyah, in the world of Asiyah. And all malachim have a soul, a body and a soul. But if you learn Torah mamish leilishma, in other words, if a person learns Torah with bad intentions, going for example, a person learns because he wants to be a Talmud Chacham, he wants kavod, ukahai gavna, or anything of that sort.
Talmud Chacham, to be a Talmud is a bad intention.
Yes. Then the Torah doesn't go up at all. Even to the Echalos, even to the dwelling of the Malachim. Why? Because the Malachim are Kedusha. And if you have your own selfish intention, in other words, if you didn't, you learned, but it wasn't the selfish learning. It was you didn't have Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem. Then it goes up to the level of Malachim. Because it's a holy act. It's not godly. You didn't have Hashem in mind, but it's a holy act. But if you did it with the wrong intentions, for egotistical reasons, then it stays down here in this physical world, which is the place of klipa. Because what you have done is you've taken the holy words of Torah and you've dressed it up in klipa, meaning you've given it a selfish identity. Torah, which is transparent to Hashem, which is holy, you've done is you've taken it and you made it part of your own identity, which means that you've made a clip on it.
If you're saying the person is learning to be called Rebbe or Kavod, but if the person is, when you say Talmud Chacham, it is something a person is supposed to strive to be. We're not talking about Kavod.
Okay, that's what he meant. If you're doing it because you want the Kavod associated with being a Talmud Chacham,
called a Rebbe or honor or prestige.
But to learn to be a Talmud Chacham
it's not totally Lishma.
It's not.
Lishma means
It's not Lishma at all. Elma, it's not as bad as.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing right with it.
It depends how you.
Torah, you're supposed to learn Torah with Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. That's right.
Whatever definition of Lishma is, it's big machlokes.
Right. But we're following the Baal Tanya.
I understand, but it doesn't have to be a machlokes. The point is though, the concept of being a Talmud Chacham is if you're saying you want to know Hashem's Torah, you're not doing it because of the honor or the. You want to know Hashem's Torah.
Why do you want to know Hashem's Torah?
You want to know Hashem's Torah.
There's something there.
There's a mitzvah to know Hashem's Torah, to learn.
Okay, I'm saying that.
That's perfectly right.
I mean, being a Talmud Chacham wouldn't mean involved that you have this title, but it's not exactly if you're not doing it. But then also Taisha seems to say that you still shall learn anyhow, even Shalom Shema Baal Shema.
That's something else. That's true. And the Alter Rebbe said that earlier. But that doesn't change. He said the Alter Rebbe. But then the Perek Lamed Tes, the Alter Rebbe says even if not Lishma, you should do it because then eventually, even if you do for the wrong intentions, eventually you'll do tshuva, and when you do tshuva, you lift up that Torah back into the right place retroactively. And if it doesn't have a bad intention, that's what the Alter Rebbe says. As long when you relearn, let's say you learned a blat of Gemara and it wasn't Lishma, no bad intention, but you didn't have Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. So when you relearned that blat Gemara Lishma, you drag also along your previous time you learned it Lishma. But you said if you learn it because it's a mitzvah, right? What does that mean? No, you're punting. Why are you doing a mitzvah?
Right. So Yiras Hashem and Avos Hashem is definitely an agenda for all mitzvahs and Lishma. It's just that there is that opinion that says Lishma means to know Hashem's Torah.
I understand, but we're right now going in the derech. He is. The Baal Tanya is very clear. Lishma means Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem.
Right.
So if you say I'm doing it because it's Hashem's mitzvah, and therefore I have to do what Hashem wants, that's Yira. So that's part of Lishma. That's because if you're saying I have to do it because it's Hashem, well, so it's a mitzvah. So what? Well, no, Hashem is my boss. So that's Yiras Hashem. That's half of Lishma.
Right.
As we'll see as we continue the Perek, half of Lishma is like having one wing. You need to have two wings in order to fly up to heaven. That's what it says in Tikkun Yizayah. That for mitzvah to go up to go up, it needs Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. But that's something we're going to be exploring over the coming weeks. Why you have to have both of them. But Lishma is Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem. So yeah, if you're saying I'm learning Torah because Hashem wants me to, so And if that's really the reason, so you have your starting place. You have Yiras Hashem. That's already part of the Shema. But if you're learning, because I want to be a Talmid Chacham, we spoke last time, my last class, we spoke about how the Baal Shem Tov, once he came to a Beis Medrash, and he stopped by the door and says, I can't go in there. And they asked him why. He said, because it's filled with Torah. There's no place for me. You were
last time.
what?
The Torah is still down here, and they went up.
So he explained, because it says in the Zohar that when you learn Torah, what's Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, the Torah, right? So it goes up, it gets elevated, and goes up.
Here.
And over here, because there was no Avos Hashem, no Yiras Hashem, as everyone was learning because they wanted to be a Talmid Chacham, so the Torah stays here. The shul is filled with the Torah, and I can't go in. A story about the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, anyways, moving on.
If their intention is to show up.
Sorry, what?
If their intention is to show up.
If right, because if their intention is neither here, nishtahin, nishtahar, not bad, not good, then it goes up to the chitzonius ha'olamus, to the place where the malachim are, creates malachim, chitzonius ha'olamus. If, however, it's learned mamish for the bad intention, for a kavod or for money, and verat lekanter, Tosfos says if the worst kind of learning is when you're learning Torah to put someone else down, or if you're learning to be mitayr sheretz. In other words, some people, Rahman al-Islam, they're learning in order to find that's the worst. What?
You already have the header. The
Tais says Lekanter. But there's another limud also, which is that at Upkebrach and other places that's also, and there we don't say Mitech Shlei Lishma Balashma. There we don't say, don't do it, right? That's the worst, right? And there's so for sure that doesn't go up to Shemaim. So the Baal Shem Tov sense that in this Beis Medrash where he was, that there was the Torah over there was Pashat learned with wrong intentions, again for kavod, to be a Talmid Chacham, to be, kekardum lachtuchba, etc. And therefore he says he didn't want to go in.
Where does the Torah go if you megal halach shlo?
Then you drag it into klippa. It stays down here in Elam HaKlippas. There's no question about it.
But that's even. But he doesn't get schar mitzvah for that. That's already using it for an evil intent.
And Chanam. Inside, we're going to do now the Haggah, the footnote, which is Kameshikasav b'Zohar Chila Gimel Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. It says in Zohar, in Chila Gimel Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, and in Daf Kuf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, Ayin Sham. It says there in Zohar, Hahi Mila, that this word that a person says, every word a person says, Solka goes up, Ubaka Rikian. We're in the footnote.
The footnote.
In the footnote, yeah.
I thought you were
Towards the bottom of the page.
Yes.
The word goes up and it pierces the heavens. Chulu. V'isar ma the isar, and it awakens, it arouses that which it arouses. Tav tav. If it's a good word, a positive word, then it arouses something positive. Chulu. And the opposite also true. If a person says something negative, lashon hara, it arouses a corresponding spiritual energy. So we're trying to be there. When a person says Torah, learns Torah, so it goes up to heaven and it has an effect in heaven. Ayin Sham, see over there, and also V'daf Kufei Amud Aleph. Also in Zohar, it says Mila De'eraisa, a word of Torah, is Avid Minei Kala, becomes a sound, a voice. V'salik, and it goes up to heaven. V'chul. So these are all different places in Zohar that Baal Tanya is referencing, that talks about how the words of Torah go up and have an impact above. V'daf Kuf Samach Beis, Kuf Samach Chas Amud Beis, and also in Zohar, page 168, Amud Beis, Kolin the Iraiso Tzlois, that says over there, the sound, the voice of Torah, and davening, Bakin, Riki, and Chulu, they pierce the heavens and go up. So all these different Makoros we have for the fact that when a person studies Torah, does mitzvahs, when it's done properly, it's supposed to go up to heaven and have an impact over there. Back on page Nun Daled, 4 lines from the top, from the bottom of the page. As it says in Zohar, Al Pasuk, Ma Yishin La Adam. Pasuk says in Kehelas, Ma Yishin La Adam. What gain is there for a person b'chol amalei sheyamel tachas hashamesh, for all the toil that he toils under the heaven? So the Medrash in Kehelas Rabbah says on this, that what does this mean? That all the toil that a person does under the sun is all worthless, but toil which is higher than the sun, heavenly toil. For example, learning Torah, doing mitzvahs. So there we don't say my yisra, and there we don't say there is no benefit. Obviously, there's a large benefit to that toil. That's what the Medrash says. But the Zohar takes it further. The Zohar says that even if someone is toiling in Torah, but he avid begin yikre chulu, if chas v'shalom he's doing it for his own honor, then that also is called tachas hashamesh. That is Torah that does not go up to the heaven. It's called, therefore it remains. That's why the pasuk is particular. My Yisrael, what advantage is there for the toil that you toil under the sun, which means under the heaven? So the Zohar says, even if you're learning Torah, even though it's a spiritual pursuit, but if it's done for one's own honor, then it doesn't go up to heaven. And therefore, my Yisrael, what advantage is there to that limud HaTorah? And v'zeu shekosov, and this is what the pasuk says. This is what the Gemara says in Mesechus Pesachim. The Gemara says, "Ashrei mi shebalakan v'talmudei biyadeh." That fortunate is one who comes over here to, in other words, after 120, Balakan comes up to heaven, v'talmudei biyadeh, with his study, with his Talmud, his learning in his hands. So Pashut Pshat in this is, that as we know, that when the person goes up to heaven after 120 years, he's ushered into the yeshiva over there, but what does he get to learn? And that's, by the way, the enjoyment that the person has from the Shekhinah is the enjoyment of being able to study Torah and being able to... But what does he learn over there? He learns the Torah, which he learned down here. The only thing is over here, you're learning only the most superficial layer, which is possible for a neshama beguf in general to understand, and especially a person of a lower level. And when you go up to Gan Eden, there suddenly everything that you learned over here in this world, you get to relearn on a much higher level and a much deeper level. So Ashrei Misha Balakan, fortunate is the one who comes to Gan Eden with Talmud, and he has, his Gemaras in his hands. He learned the Gemara, because then he's going to get to relearn that, but in a much deeper and in a greater way, which is an incredible hana. Because as we explained on several occasions before, Gan Eden is not a reward which Hashem says, oh, you did that, I'm going to give you this. Gan Eden is something which we create over here in this world. When we learn Torah, we're creating our Gan Eden. We're going to go and enjoy in Gan Eden that Torah which we learned down here. It's the product of our own work. But the Alter Rebbe is saying a deeper pshat. Ashrei Misha Balakan, they're saying, fortunate is the one who came here with Talmud Biyadeh, and he has his learning with him. He didn't leave it down there. Because it's possible for a person to learn. That's why it should say Ashrei Misha Balakan, that fortunate is the one who comes here, V'lomad, and he learned. What's Talmud Biyadeh? It's like he's dragging along his Torah with him, yeah? Because it's possible that a person should have been in this world and should have learned, but Chas V'Shalom, he goes up to heaven, and he has nothing with it. He has nothing with him. He left it all down here. Left it all in that base medrash, which was stuffed with the Torah. So the Gemara says, Asher Misha Balakan, the Talmud Biyadeh, someone who learned. So don't, even if you didn't do it mamish lishma, it still goes up to the higher world, as we mentioned. Just remember, in the Chitzonius Eilamis, in the external parts of the world. So even over there, it's biyadeh. It's somewhat you're taking it along with you. But if chas v'shalom, a person learned Torah their entire life, and the Taki was all to begin Yikre, it was all for kavod, and all. So then there is no Talmud biyadeh. There's no Talmud biyadeh. Okay, so with this, we've concluded this idea, which is the Alter Rebbe is saying, we're being very clear over here that depending on the kavana you have, that's where you elevate the Torah to. So far we discussed over here several possibilities. You can, if the kavana is terrible, you put it on a klipa because you gave it a klipa neshama. That's what happens when you learn it with your own kavod. What you've done is the neshama, which is the motivation, was klipa. So you've dragged it down. You've taken the holy words of Torah and dragged it into klipa because you gave it a klipa neshama. And if it's a Sefer Torah, the halacha is that a Sefer Torah that's written by an apikoros, you have to burn it. Halacha. Imagine taking a Sefer Torah. And the halacha is, Eitz Chaim, and with a mental, and with the Yudke, Vavke, everything, and halacha is, you have to take it and throw it into a fire. Why is that? Because the neshama of this Torah is klipa. It's not kedusha. So what? That's a halacha. That's halacha. Sefer Torah shekas v'min.
No, but I mean, it's not.
First time.
in that case, if the person's not B'Kodesh.
Well, the point I'm trying to bring out is that it's possible to take something which is intrinsically and essentially holy, something like Torah, which even the Torah is not Mekabel Tumah.
Right.
But if you put in the wrong neshama, then you're putting it in a bad place.
Right.
So that's one thing. And then there's the obviously and the other end of the spectrum is that if a person learns Torah and does mitzvahs lishma, so then what you've done is that not only the act is holy, because every time the act of the mitzvah is holy. Not only the act is holy, but even the neshama is also holy, and therefore then it connects immediately to the higher worlds. Why? Because the act is shaykh to this world, because this world is a world of action, but you've brought it higher. You brought it to the world of intellect, the world of emotion, holy intellect, holy emotion, the godly part of it. You've elevated the mitzvah. And then there's the other possibilities that it was not nishtahin, nishtahar, the chesenis ailments, but the bottom line is we see how much the neshama impacts, the neshama of the mitzvah, which means the kavana impacts the mitzvah. Says the Alter Rebbe,
Clarification. I know nothing, but I once heard that from Tershlev Kavana, you create malach. I thought it was a Zohar. It seems to tell you kind of a Tal says this, right? It's not a Zohar. The idea that malachim are created from Tershlev Kavana. Could you see to say it's kind of a Tal? I remember absolutely Cup as a Zohar.
I wish I could tell you that I was a Baki in Zohar and that I can tell you exactly whether or not it's in the Zohar. It's possible it is in the Zohar. I do not know. The Reb Chaim Vital is being more specific about Torah, which is Lei B'Kavana, and the word of Malachim are. It's possible that the general concept is mentioned in Zohar. I don't know. So we keep on talking over here about taking a mitzvah and elevating it to the world of Bria, and elevating it to the world of Yetzirah, elevating to this world, to that world, taking Torah and elevating it. Alter Rebbe is going to say, we're elevating Torah. We're elevating mitzvahs. Torah created everything. All these higher worlds that we're talking about, we're going to elevate the Torah to that world. Torah is so much higher than those worlds. Alpayim shana kadma Torah le'olam. The Torah has preceded the world by 2,000 years, whatever that means. Conceptually, the Torah, all of creation comes from Torah. Istakel b'yiraisa bara alma. The Eibishter looks in the Torah and he creates the world. And we know, the Zohar tells us, Eiraisa v'kutchabrichu kulachad. The Torah and Hashem are one, mamish one. Hu eretzoni echad, hu chachmasi echad. The Gemara says in Masechet Shabbos that the word anoichi of in Aseres Hadibris is a neitrikun. Zerash teves havana nafshi ksavis yehavas. Hashem says, I took myself, I wrote myself into the Torah, and I gave myself away to you. Oisi atam loichim. We learn Torah is Hashem. It's one thing. As the Rambam says, Hu amado hu yedei. It's famous. The Rambam says Hashem is one with His chachma. Torah is Hashem's chachma. And you're telling me that when I learn Torah, I'm elevating it to the world of Bria? What kind of joke is that? The Torah needs me to elevate it. So until now, the last few prakim we're saying over here again, we're talking about you learn Torah with this kavana, with that kavana. So the Torah, you're putting the Torah into klipa. Torah stays here. Torah goes this world, that world. It sounds like a joke. Let's do it inside. Even though we know that Hashem and the Torah are absolutely one, Hashem and His Ratzon are one. That's the extent of the question. The Alter Rebbe is going to start answering. And the answer is going to be like this. As we discussed in at length in chapter 38, in Perek Lamed Chas, we know again that there are higher worlds and lower worlds. And there are two things that differentiate the higher worlds from the lower worlds. One of them is Hester and one of them is Tzimtzum. Which means that in the higher worlds there is more divine energy, and the lower worlds there is less. Which that means Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum means contraction. And another thing is called a Hester. Hester means in the higher worlds, whatever oir there is revealed. And in this world, even the little energy, divine energy that there is completely concealed. Two different things. And they're not really related one to another. Because it's possible to have a lot of energy hidden. It's possible to have a little energy which is revealed. But in the way, in the Hishtalshelus, in the chaining down of the worlds, as the worlds chain down, they're chaining down in both areas. Number one is Hester. As it goes down, Hashem's light becomes more and more hidden. And number two, it becomes less. The air becomes less. So let's use an example of radio waves. So there are radio waves here in this room, but they're Behelim, right? It's called Hester. We can't see them. How strong is the signal here in this room? Let's take a WINS, it's a radio station, a news station in New York. How strong is the signal here in this room? Anyone knows?
Very weak.
How do you know?
That's
You would have no idea. The only way to know,
I can't measure. You need to measure.
right? Why don't we know? Because there's complete Hester. Even whether it's a very strong signal or a very weak signal, either way, it's completely hidden. That's the point I'm trying to bring out, right? That there's two issues. There's one, hiddenness, and one is it a strong or a weak signal? The same thing is in all the worlds. The higher worlds have a very strong signal of Hashem, and it's revealed. And over here, we have a very weak signal, and it's hidden, but it's not necessarily connected one to another, because it's possible there's a very strong signal here of radio waves. I still can't see it. So then, but let's use that example. Let's continue with that example of the radio. So let's say I have here two radios. One is a stronger radio, one is a weaker radio. One is a better quality radio, better antennas, and one is a weaker one. And that's really that's really a good example, because we have the higher worlds, we say have more light, and the lower worlds have low light. Why? Because the higher worlds have better antenna. It's not that there is more light, really. When we say Gilu, when we say revelation, it doesn't mean that Hashem is more present there, because Hashem is equally present everywhere. But their antenna, they were created with better antennas. Just like my mind can grasp things that a rock cannot grasp. That's so. My mind is an example for the world of Bria, intellectual mind. The world of Asiya is an example of a rock, because Asiya's action is physical. So just like my mind can grasp things that a rock can't, the same thing is also the world of Bria. It has its receptors for the heavenly is much greater than is like or like the example we gave before of the father and the children. It's a matter of the receptors. So again, in our world, what we have is the very lowest level, and everything is hidden, and it's a very low level of light. So you go to a higher world, the world of Bria. So there, number one, the Hashem's light is incredible, much more than over here, and it's perceived. Over here, the light is less, and the reason why this world is the lowest world, as discussed when we say this world is the lowest world, what makes this world the lowest world? Maybe there's a world lower than us. How do we know there's no world lower than us? When I say lower, we don't mean physically lower. We don't mean to start digging. But because this world is a world of absolute cheshach. There is no gilui. Everything is 100% hidden. So if everything is 100% hidden, you can't get lower than that. You can't get worse than absolute darkness. There is no revelation. You look around the world. Where do we see Hashem? Nowhere.
You can't see Hashem, but you see the flares are buried everywhere.
Nothing advertises Hashem. Everything advertises I am in this world. That's the world of Klippas. You could use your mind to figure things out, but at the end of the day,
when you connect yourself with Torah, you see the world in a different light.
So that's because Torah makes a revelation, but not intrinsically. In Shayuch V'Amunah, the Alter Rebbe says there are two things, there are two areas of two little cracks in the darkness. One of them is Oisis and Oisim Shebetayra. When you saw a miracle, the miracles, the Kriyas Yamsuf, that means that the Hester was ripped away and the Tzaddikim Shebechol there, he says. Looking at a Tzaddik, there is no Hester when you're looking at a Tzaddik. It's very interesting. But when you look, everything you look around the world, what do you see? You see, I am. I am seltzer, I am a cup, I am a hat, everything's I am. Nothing advertises Hashem. So it's absolute Hester. So on the one hand, there's absolute Hester in this world, but also the amount of energy in this world, because it's a physical world, it's like a 2-year-old. The amount that we can have is very little, and even that is all hidden. Says the Alter Rebbe, as we've learned many times in the past, there's one exception to this rule. There is, and that is Torah. In Torah, there is no Hester. In Torah, there is no Hester at all. The Torah does not in any way hide Hashem. Hashem shines through. This doesn't say I am. The words of Torah says, this is what Hashem says. There is no Hester. There is no Hester. So when I am saying words of Torah, we're not talking about the Torah now. We're talking about my words, my voice, my act of Torah. There is no Hester. When I am uttering words of Torah, those words do not conceal Hashem. But because my voice is physical, so even though there is no Hester, but there's a lot of tzimtzum. Remember we said there's two things. There's the amount of energy, and there's the hiddenness of it. In Torah there is no Hester, nothing's hidden. But because it's physical, it's like a cheap radio. The more spiritual something is, the more it can receive energy, because spiritual and spiritual go together. My physical words, how much of energy can there be there? Not much. It's physical. There is no Hester. Again, there's no Hester. Whatever it is revealed. But how much energy is revealed in the physical voice? Not that much can be revealed. So the issue isn't, I'm not elevating the Torah. The Torah is Hashem's Torah. We're talking about elevating my act of limud Torah. My act of limud Torah, if it's only my words are physical. It remains in this world. It can only process as much revelation of the divine as much as possible in the physical world. What if I want that my act, not the Torah, my act of learning Torah should have a greater amount of revelation within it? A greater amount of energy, a greater amount of air? For that, I need to infuse it with a spiritual holy content, which is my kavanah. In my kavanah is like a what's those radios that get everything from all over the place? The olden days have no.
Shortwave?
Yeah, shortwave. Today, who knows what a shortwave is? Right, today it's www. Right? My kavanah is because it's spiritual. Spiritual can contain so much more of the energy of Hashem. It's not an issue of Hester. It's an issue of tzimtzum. And that's why it's so important to have kavanah. When you're learning Torah, doing a mitzvah, is because it's not about Hashem's Torah. Hashem's Torah is holy. Is my act of studying Torah holy? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Holy means there is no Hester. But at the same time, how much oir, how much of the oir, how much energy is there, how much light isn't there? That depends on my kavanah.
You're saying that this all refers to the Torah delay.
Yes.
That's what we're working on. Not Hashem's Torah. The Torah delay.
My act of Torah. Okay, I don't know if that's mamish the knates what you're saying. I know you're talking about the Torah delay. We're talking about my act of, not Torah as it is in abstract. My act of limud ha-Torah is that act have gili olakus in it. That's what we're talking about right now. To be continued, B'ezras Hashem next week.
Good.